Colorado had a successful season so far. I know the season's not over, but I'm hearing a lot of talk about how Colorado has 4 times their wins of last year. So this should be considered a successful rebuild so far. But let's get more into it. First of all, unlike most coaches who join new squads, Dion went out and replaced almost every position. So there wasn't as much developing as other coaches had to do that have been in his situation. So now let's look at these wins that they've had so far. So the first one was against TCU. And at the time, TCU was ranked in the late teens. But if we look what TCU actually is now, they're almost at the bottom of the Big 12 with a 4-5 record, and Colorado only beat them by 3. Next win was against Nebraska, and Nebraska might not play the hardest schedule, but they are turning it around. And even though this was a pretty close game throughout the first half, Colorado blew it open in the second half. Nextly, Colorado beat their rival in Colorado State. I know this was a rivalry game, but this is now a 3-5 group of 5 Colorado State team. Colorado had to win it in overtime. And finally, their last win is against a 2-6 Arizona State team. And once again, they only won by 3. 3 of these games could have been flipped in the other direction, and they could have only had 1 win right now. And even with that blowout for Nebraska, their win margin right now is only 9 points. And the total record of the teams that they beat are 14-19. So now let's look at their losses. They got absolutely stepped on by Oregon. But hey, Oregon's a good team, so I'll let that slide. This USC game is a little deceiving, as USC in the third quarter was up by more than 3 possessions. And as we see, this USC team isn't as good as we thought in the preseason. They did lose to UCLA, which I do think UCLA is a young, good team, but this Stanford loss is unacceptable. This Stanford team has 2 overall wins and 1 win in the conference, and they have only beat Colorado in the conference. And to remind you, this happened in that game. And no shade to Travis Hunter, and I know he got hurt during the season, but they let him fully recover before he got back into the lineups. And still, he is barely top 50 in receiving yards per game. Also, he is 17th in total interceptions, which I'll give him props, that's pretty good. The question comes back, was this a successful season? Well, if you see here, we have people like Rico, shout out to him because he knows what he's doing, but he predicted at the beginning of the season, Colorado would have 6 or 7 wins. And then you have the Atlas crew here who said this.
Colorado's absolute max wins this year is 5.
I think absolutely not. This is not a successful rebuild this season. Now, they can still turn around, but I don't see more than 2 wins on the rest of their season. But I will say we shouldn't jump the gun and give Dion a couple years before we evaluate it.